Clint, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
What brings you to Intersolar?
Well, I'm a lawyer with Eversheds LLP, which is an international law firm with a particular emphasis on renewable energy. So as a firm, we've acted on over 30 gigawatts of renewable energy projects across the UK, mainland Europe, into the Middle East, and more recently the Far East as well.
So is this a large market for you here?
The Middle East is a huge market, stretching from Morocco into Algeria, Tunisia, Egypt, all down the east coast of Africa, into sub-Saharan Africa, across into the Middle East, and again, more recently, Pakistan and Iran.
Are you structuring that finance from here, or do you have more regional offices?
Yeah, well, we have a one-firm approach. So I myself have a team in Dubai. I work quite closely with a partner called Indraj Mangat, who heads the clean energy project finance team in London, and we share associates and resources as and when the clients need us.
So where are you seeing the largest developments occurring?
In the Middle East, I would say obviously Dubai has got 2 or 3 large projects on. Abu Dhabi as well has just announced the winner this morning of the 350 megawatt project. So we saw a lot of traction there in terms of acting for bidders. Iran looks like it's going to open up soon. So at the moment we're advising a number of international and local developers on their structuring and licenses and onshore advice and offshore bilateral investment treaty advice. Pakistan has got a huge potential both for wind and solar, and touching on East Africa again, you've got Kenyan wind projects, solar in Uganda and Tanzania, so it's a huge market at the moment.
And how are you normally structured? Is there a normal structure to these deals?
In terms of the financing, yeah, the typical structure is non-recourse project financing, and by non-recourse I mean the banks do not have recourse to the developers or sponsors / shareholders of the deal. The recourse is purely to the project finance company, which is an insulated entity. You do get some structures which are limited recourse, where there may be a 5% or 10% contingency pool which the sponsors pay into, but typically it's non-recourse project financing, and you see that whether it's funded by the DFIs like the World Bank, IFC, EBRD, or whether it's the commercial banks like Standard Chapter and SocGen.
Do you think this is a field that is gaining momentum, or do you think it's plateaued and you're just going to see the same number of deals coming through?
I think it's definitely gained momentum. You only need to look at the announcements that are being made by governments, particularly in North Africa and East Africa, and also in the Middle East, in terms of what their renewable energy targets are. And obviously we had the Paris Agreement last year, where all these governments did sign up to a percentage of their energy consumption being produced through renewable energy.
Why do you think there's suddenly a push towards certainly solar?
Solar's traditionally the cheapest. It seems to be the fastest moving technology. You're seeing EPC prices plummeting around the globe, and that's been reflected in some of the pricing that we've seen in Dubai, where we saw 2.99 cents, and Zambia more recently, which was I think around 6 or sub 6 cents per kilowatt hour. So the prices are being driven down. It's an easy plug and play technology. It's not like wind where you have to build the mast and the turbines. So I think we'll see that the popularity increase, particularly in Africa, where you can have these solar rooftop panels that you can go and buy from the store and pay through your mobile phone. So it's a cheap and easy, efficient way of getting electricity into homes, which drive economical growth.
What most excites you about this market?
Good question, actually. What most excites me about the market, just how fast-paced it is, how innovative. It's very entrepreneurial. I think in Jordan, when they announced their renewable energy program 3 or 4 years ago, you had something like 50, 60 renewable energy companies pop up overnight. So it's very entrepreneurial, it's fast-moving. You're now seeing these panels that they wrap around the building to generate energy, and it's so fast-paced and innovative, which you just don't see with other types of energy. I mean, you can't really call oil and gas or coal innovative or fast-paced. It's traditional.
What are the intricacies of these deals?
Well, intricacies, I'd say more what are the sort of risks and issues and pitfalls we face as lawyers when we're looking at these transactions. I mean, I can just give you some good examples of that. So for instance, we're seeing with Egypt at the moment, one of the issues we have is the convertibility of the Egyptian pounds, and we as lawyers were brought in by our developer clients to ask, look, how can we start structuring these deals to be able to get our Egyptian pounds out? And we had some conversations with the World Bank, and we're trying to put these structures in place. In a jurisdiction like Algeria, you have issues around who can own a company. So apparently it needs to be 51% Algerian owned. So can we put in place an offshore structure to give our international clients the comfort when they enter into those markets? In Iran, there are issues around how to get the international finances involved. Can Eversheds play a role in that through our network of international banks and DFIs? So there's much more to being a lawyer in these markets and this type of sector than the actual practicing of the law. I mean, we have a fantastic team who look at the PPAs and the connection agreements. We've got a very strong construction and EPC team, but then we also add value in terms of bringing together local developers with international developers, financiers, panel manufacturers, and what we as Eversheds do as sort of a value-add service through our network of contacts is bring the deal together with all the concerned parties.
Are there any particular complexities that, as this industry is going through a boom period, post-COP, that are more complicated than perhaps they were a few years ago?
I think what they're talking about now, it's quite the reverse. They're talking about standardising the market, particularly in relation to the documentation. For instance, the power purchase agreement. Is it possible to have a standard, internationally recognised power purchase agreement for each jurisdiction? And when you look at the PPA in Algeria compared to the PPA in Jordan, compared to the PPA in Iran, they're very different because they've all been drafted with different interests in mind. So what we would like to see over the next 5 to 10 years is a standardisation of the PPA, a standardisation of the transmission connection agreement, a standardisation of the financing documents. I mean, we saw recently on the deals that we did in Jordan, particularly with IFC and EBRD, we saw these banks rolling out standard form documentation for each of the deals and only making slight amendments at the request of the sponsors where necessary. So we're not seeing a commoditisation of the market, but it will, over 5 or 10 years' time, you will see it commoditised, I think, in terms of the legal documentation.
So what does the future hold for Eversheds and the MENA region?
Well, for Eversheds, for us, it's all about being first to market. We're very active in Iran. We're one of the first to markets there. We are in Pakistan, very active, where you don't see many international law firms. The Far East is looking like a fantastic market for Eversheds, so they've got programs in the Philippines, in Thailand and Indonesia, and also Sub-Saharan Africa, where we are very active in conventional power and infrastructure and now looking to leverage those relationships in renewable energy.
Clint, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me.